organizers for organizing and having me here. Thank you everyone for listening. Before I begin, social ontology and mental is not about disabled people, as there was some kind of joke here. It's really referencing Alan Nelson's 1990 paper on social science and the mental. Because what I want to present is a problem for me, and I want to start by saying that I'm like 90% sure that everything I say is going to be wrong. I just want someone to tell me why, and how the project goes astray. Because this is something that I'm not exactly saying that it's keeping me up at night, but something because of which I cannot fully appreciate social ontology's contributions to the project of philosophy and social sciences as it is. It is basically because of what it thinks about, or what kind of mental background is presupposed for the social ontological project to run smoothly. I'm going to talk a bit about those. Here's an overview. Oh, that's actually a very useful thing. I might not talk for 30 minutes, so I hope you can excuse that. So, I'd like to have a brief overview about collective intentions as they are postulated by Searle and Tuomela, who is sadly not here anymore, but I was really looking forward to him setting me straight. And I would like to examine what kind of stance do they require considering the metaphysical status of mental states, and how the collective intentionality thesis fare against the backdrop of like an anti-realist picture of the mental. Yeah, my problem in a nutshell is that to me these all presuppose some kind of robust realistic framework considering mental phenomena. But let's see why I think that. Here the usual suspects are coming. So here's John Searle from Making the Social World. This is what he says about collective intentions. Well, he says lots more about collective intentions, but these are quotes that should substantiate what I want to pick at. So, every so often in philosophy, someone tries to naturalize intentionality, but intentionality, evidently says that they really fail, because intentionality is already naturalized because, not that many because, for example, thinking is as natural as digesting. There isn't any other place for intentionality to be except in human brains. All intentionality, whether collective or individual, has to exist inside individuals' heads. But this is just about intentionality in general. What more does he say about collective intentions? This is probably everyone's familiar with this, the non-reducibility thesis. So there is no reason why we cannot have an irreducible we intention in each of our heads when we are engaging in some cooperative activity. Later on, when he summarizes his account, he says that strong forms of collective intentionality, those involved in cooperation, are irreducible to high intentionality. So collective intentions are, according to John Searle, inside human heads, or brains. Collective intentions are present when we are attempting to cooperate in the service of certain mutual ends, and they are, or should be, irreducible in their strong, or I think interesting versions to our intentions. They are like methodological primitives, as sort of other has put it someplace else. So they're not to be analyzed into more detail. So they are something that exists inside our minds, heads, brains. I'll leave it up right now. So what does Professor Tuomela say about collective intentions in that regard? Something along these lines. These are quotes from Social Ontology from the 2013 year. Like full-blown joint intentions exist as relational properties between two or more individuals collectively viewed as forming a group. I assume that individual agents' intentional features are not fictitious and do not problematize them. This is my favorite footnote from Social Ontology, because this is exactly the point I would like to make. That the project works and the project is in full force once you assume that intentional features are real. If you have any reason to doubt that realism, to me, it would seem to be that the project cannot really go forward anymore. And of course, he also has an irreducibility thesis, propositions containing predicates, concepts that express remote collective attitudes and actions or other related remote collective intentionality properties or activities in general are neither conceptually nor explanatorily or ontologically reducible to propositions containing predicates or concepts expressing private, as in I-mode, intentions and actions and what can be conceptually constructed out of I-mode resources. So just like I did with Searle, here is what the intentions are according to Suomela. These are relational properties between individuals or individuals' minds or brains. They are in principle irreducible to I-mode intentional states, and they are not fictitious, since individual intentions are also not fictitious. So this is the big picture of collective intentionality, as I tend to focus on it. And I would argue that this whole thing presupposes something which is called mental realism. I don't really want to dwell on this for long, but this is just what everyone knows what it is. Like, mental states are real in an ontological sense. They are parts of our world. They are there somewhere. Which also means that they can be a subject of empirical or scientific investigations. If they are really there, there should be scientific treatment available for them. And at this junction, nothing more needs to be said about their particular characteristics. I just need them to be real for this. And I think that the collective intentionality accounts also need them to be real, because otherwise, what are we talking about? And this is my here comes my problem. So, if mental states are real, even in this vague metaphysical sense that I just outlined, then they should be subjected to, they are proper subjects of empirical analysis. If specific types of mental states, like collective intentions, are the building blocks of society, as they are supposed to be on social ontological accounts, and these mental states are real, then social phenomena are in principle describable using the vocabulary of the mental. And it's probably going to go against what Francesco said earlier. So that, this, for me, always gives way if you describe social phenomena as based on collective intentional states, or like any kind of intentionality for that matter, it would give way to a psychological reduction in the social realm. I will continue later. So if they are real, if mental states are real and they are subject to scientific analysis, then what could they be? So what kind of science would be able to investigate them, and what could you tell us about them? And there's one way to go about this issue is to suppose that, well, who knows, maybe intentional states are natural kinds. And for that matter, maybe all mental entities are members of certain natural kinds. Now, I, on my account, would really not want this to be the case, because to me, differences between the natural and the social sciences rise and fall, stand or fall, basically on the kinds of entities that they're investigating, or the differences between the kinds of entities they're investigating. If the mental phenomena are natural kinds and the social phenomena are made up out of mental phenomena, then this gives way, again, to a kind of reduction that I really don't want to take place. But has there been like a treatment of mental states as natural kinds? What should we, or what could we say about them if we decided to look at mental phenomena as natural kinds? There wasn't psychological categories that have specific features that distinguish them from one another, and these would probably a certain kind membership then, or arrange them into kinds. And Diana Perez has a 2004 paper, which the title of which is Mental Entities, not mental entities, but something like that, mental entities as natural kinds. And she proposes exactly this. So there are, just like there are chemical kinds, there are physical kinds or biological kinds, there are propositional attitude kinds, which have functional essences. And it's not just any kind of kind talk, it's essentialist kind talk. And very much based on an Apartmenian version of essentialism. And she says that what
version of obsession?
Hilary Putnam's essentialist treatment, where he distinguishes nominal essence, real essence, and semantic markers and syntactic markers. I'm just jumbling on these other four. So, according to her, what individuates beliefs, desires, and intentions, and pretty much everything else that's going on inside our heads, are their causal roles in a cognitive system. In our cognitive system, in our thinking, in our acting upon such thoughts, and all that jazz. My problem here is basically with the functional essence part, because I think it's a contradiction in terms, but we will see whether I'm wrong. Of course, you admit that if an essence is functional, it's multiply realizable, and that different behavioral patterns could realize the same intention, provided that the intention played a part in bringing about the behavior. That means, of course, what multiple realizability usually means is that I can have certain intentions, desires, beliefs, and I can act on them, and you can also have the same intentions, desires, and beliefs, and you can act on them in entirely different ways. But these intentions, beliefs, and desires will still be part of the same category of natural kinds. But I have a problem with this, even if we admit for this much the realist background it presupposes. So if the causal powers were like the key to individuating members of natural kinds, or individuating the kinds themselves, then different forms of realization might also differ in their causal powers and roles. And I just give an example here that, well, I could have a desire to protest against oppression, and I can do it in multiple ways. I can go to the bar and tell the people that this government is oppressive and something should be done. I can write angry letters to different newspapers. Or the other extreme is that I can just assassinate the president. I'm fighting oppression. I have a desire to fight oppression each of the time, and I have an intention to fight oppression. All of these, so in all of these scenarios. So if that is the case, then the powers, I mean, the roles they play in bringing these things about would probably vary. And in general, I would say that why do we need natural kind talk at all in the natural sciences, if we need it at all, is in order for us to be able to generalize over individual instances, and that's what we want natural kinds to do. Natural kinds, provided that they are understood in an essentialist fashion, will need to have the same causal roles. Because otherwise, then the laws that they would probably have grounding just wouldn't exist, or would be like individualistic, which is kind of a problem if you want to have natural science that actually takes large amounts of phenomena and tries to explain and predict their behavior. So if this is the case with mental states, I don't see how the generalizations could occur or go through. So I'm proposing a radical upstaging of the situation. I know that fictionalism is probably not the only way that you could be anti-realist concerning mental states. But this will be like the hardest hitting one, I guess, because for me to be able to do social science and to be able to do philosophy of the social science, I don't really care if the mental phenomena are fictional. And I don't think that the same could be said about social ontological theories. So I'm relying here on Tamás Zoltán, my supervisor's 2007 paper, Two Kinds of Mental Realism. He's talking about how you can be realist considering the mental, and I'm just talking about how you can be fictionalist or anti-realist considering the mental. The one is when you actually think that mental states are fictional, which would just be a commitment, would be the denial of a commitment to their ontologically distinct existence. We would probably say something like, well, beliefs and desires are non-existent, not in their heads, not in our heads, and if that's the case, of course, the hard realism of collective intentionality, which places intentions and collective intentions inside individual minds, would be really, really hard to get going or get the project going. But this is the version where we're questioning the reality of the actual states, actual mental phenomena. The other version could be that we say that the whole psychological discourse is fictional. So, which amounts to stating such outrageous claims that when we're talking about the mental, and when we are on the surface level trying to explain our behavior, trying to predict our behavior, basing our explanations and predictions on mental events and on mental states, we're not stating facts. So, if it is not a fact-stating discourse, it has like no epistemic value, as opposed to, for example, scientific psychological treatment. It does not explain or predict, but interpret and evaluate. To dwell on this a bit more, I'm not saying if you're adopting a fictionalist point of view, you're not saying that these are good for nothing. So we still can have the mental entities or mental phenomena talk that we usually do in our everyday lives. It's getting robbed of its explanatory value and predictive value, but it has other like other values which are not in the scientifically inclined explanation and prediction domain. We can pretty much interpret each other using mental phenomena talk, and at least offer interpretations or narratives that can function as, well, tools for a better understanding of our social world. And we can also, and we do use them to like evaluate one another. If you think that X believes that so-and-so, imagine something horrible here, like the other side is for the betterment of the people, then we will probably evaluate X negatively. And also, if we think that X desires, I don't know, world peace and equality, we'll probably evaluate X positively. So these are the versions these are the roles that mental phenomena can still play in our everyday interactions, which do not require them to be actually real. Now, my problem with social ontological treatments of social phenomena is that unless, well, this simply wouldn't fly. Right? I mean, I cannot really find an entry point from which we can motivate the social ontological view of social life, which could could admit or something like this, something so outrageous as this. And you can all say that, well, basically there's a good reason why it doesn't allow it, because this is not true. But I basically tried to present the fictionalist version because I think that this stays the farthest from the realist. And well, this ties into my other beliefs and desires about how social science should be done, or how philosophy of social science should be done. But I don't think that it should turn on whether mental states have such properties or different kind of properties. So what happens if for our temporary insanity we accept something radical as this? So the collective intentionality thesis, like prima facie, would not be tenable should either the ontological status of mental states or the nature of the discourse be called into question. I have two problems which might have answers, or I might be misconstruing this whole thing, but this is something that really gets to me every time I try to incorporate social ontology into an interpretive social scientific framework that I'm trying to build. So, well, in the first case, if the states are not in our heads, like mental states, of course, not the mental states already, they cannot serve as building blocks of institutions on prima facie. No, prima facie. But, or is the belief, oh sorry, probably mixing up of the letters, in such a foundation enough for the structure to remain intact? So there might be some, we could always say that, well, intentionality is not there, but we still think it is, and we can analyze the structure even if the foundation is missing. Because it's just, which is pretty close to what I think that we can do with social kinds after all. So yeah, they might have no actual grounding in actual reality that you can measure, like reality that you can engage, reality that you can scientifically research, but still we have to deal with kind of social kinds, and they get to be really real. So those people who are in the appropriate social context for them to play in. So that is one question, but this is only for the version where I'm denying the existence of mental states, as we now understand them. And the other problem is about the discourse. So if we say that the discourse is not explanatory or predictive, then social ontology wouldn't be explanatory either, because it bases its explanations or its proposed explanations on this talk being fact-stating. And if you want to have a social science that really takes into account how society is built up, and this is what John Searle says at the end of Making the Social World, that he once met an actual sociologist at the conference who told him that his work, I mean the sociologist's work, begins when social ontology ends, and he doesn't really care about this stuff. Philosophers should go and debate this, but the actual social scientists are doing actual social science. And to which Searle replied that he might be in the right, but even so, for a social science that wants to take itself seriously should not abandon the issues of what actually constitutes society. And to that end, he proposes that, well, social ontology is here to let us know how society is built up. So now that we are finally in the know, we can probably refine our social scientific enterprise. And there goes so if the project is founded on mental entities being real and talk about mental entities being fact-stating, explanatory, predictive, it's all right. But if someone has a different stance concerning mental phenomena and denies their reality or denies that the discourse is fact-stating, then I really don't see how social ontology could be a foundational project for a better social science that is really in touch with its origins or with its foundations. How much time do I have? Is the question.
4 minutes.
Okay. But I should probably just stop, because I've said all my problems, and just to summarize. Okay, but I can say it in a sentence. If social ontology only goes through if mental entities are real, I'm denying mental entities their realism. What should happen with? Can I still have some insight from social ontology, or is it just strictly available for those who subscribe to some kind of realism in like a Jerry Fowler sense or something like that? Okay, thank you very much.